Welcome back to Yerushalmi Terumot. We are holding in Kov Zayin Amud Aleph. We are after Term Chodesh Shel Yain. Now, if you take truma of wine and it turns out to be vinegar, so if you know it was vinegar before you took the truma, then it's not a valid truma. Excuse me. So the Tan of this Mishnah holds that vinegar and wine are two separate things. Therefore, you can't take truma one for the other. That's Rebbe and Tosefta. Rabbi Yossi argues, he holds it's not a min in its own right, it's like wine which has gone vinegary, and if you took truma on wine, the truma would be chal b'diavad from the vinegar. The one now discusses what is the halacha. Rabbi Yaakov Harav Shem Rabbi Yochanan, halacha divrei Rebbe. Halacha like Rebbe that wine and vinegar are two things, and therefore you cannot take truma one for the other. Rabbi Yochanan, he says the Rebbe, our Mishnah's view of Rebbe, but the Chachamim, which means Rabbi Yossi, they argue and they hold it's one min. And if you took truma one for the other, it is chal. And the halacha is like them. So the halacha is that it is valid. Rabbi Baba Cohen by Kun Rabbi Yossi, he said, like in Amru Chem Shem Rabbi Yochanan, didn't they say the name Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi v'chaveroi, when Rabbi argues with one other, halacha ka Rabbi, halacha is like Rabbi. So, okay. So therefore, okay. But Rabbi Yochanan says, Afinu Rabbi Eitzel Rabbi Lazar Shimon. Even if it's Rabbi Lazar Shimon, the halacha is like Rebbe. Even though Rabbi Lazar Shimon was the God Lador, and he was actually greater than Rebbe in Torah. And based on this, it's poshet that the halacha should be like Rebbe, because there's only one individual, Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, who argues. And yet Rabbi Yochanan said, according to the Nusach of Rabbi Yaakov Baracha, that he says halacha is like those who argue on Rebbe. And also on the Nusach of Rabbi Yochanan, I mean, he said halacha is like Rebbe. I mean, why does he have to tell us halacha is like Rebbe? We always have a rule, halacha is like him when one person argues. So why does he have to tell me that halacha is like Rebbe, one of them? Because always halacha is like Rebbe against one another. And here, in this case, it is only an individual, so it's poshet. So Amalei, he says, begin to turn Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi b'Shem Aviv. Since Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi learnt this shitta, that their wine and vinegar are one thing in the name of his father Rabbi Yossi. So you also have Rabbi Yossi who argues on Rebbe. Now Rabbi Yossi against Rabbi Yossi v'chaverav. When Rabbi Yossi the Tana argues, halacha is ka Rabbi Yossi v'chaverav. Halacha is like Rabbi Yossi against his colleagues. Therefore, in order to notice for the mema of hachake, don't think here as well that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi against Rebbe. That's why we need to tell you halacha ka Rebbe. Right? You might have thought halacha is not like Rebbe. I'm telling you, halacha is like Rebbe. Now, we've got various other klalim about who against who wins. Rav Zira, Rav Yaakov Aridi, Rav Shem, Rav Yochanan. If you have Rav Meir and Rav Shimon, halacha is like Rav Shimon. If you have Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda, halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Now, I don't have to tell you Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda that halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Because I mean, if halacha Rav Shimon against Rav Meir, halacha is like Rav Shimon against Rav Meir, and Rav Yehuda against Rav Shimon, so definitely Rav Yehuda against Rav Meir, that halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Rabbi Baba, Rabbi Yaakov Aridi, Vishem Rabbi Yonason. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon, halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. I don't have to tell you Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. You got Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Shimon. So that's Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda against Rabbi Shimon. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Now the last klal can't be learned from the other two klalim. I mean, if we know the first two klalim, Rabbi Yehuda against Rabbi Meir, we follow Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon against Rabbi Meir, okay, we follow Rabbi Shimon. That doesn't mean Rabbi Yehuda against Rabbi Shimon, when Rabbi Meir is joining up to Rabbi Yehuda, who knows what the halach is like. So there's another klal there for Rabbi Yonason that we can learn the last klal. So Minad Shema, from the last klal of Rabbi Yonason, it says you don't have to say that halach is like him, halach is like Rabbi Yehuda. When it's Rabbi Meir arguing on Rav Shimon, basically we learn that Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon, halacha is Rabbi Yehuda. So basically, Rabbi Yehuda against Rav Shimon, halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. How much more so when Rabbi Meir joins together with Rabbi Yehuda against Rav Shimon, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay? V'im sofek. Now let's say you take truma and you don't know when did the wine become vinegar. Was it before you separated truma or not? So the din is truma out of doubt. But you have to go and take truma again. Okay, so how do you do it? So you're going to take truma a second time out of doubt. So Noisen Shtein Lekohen, you give both lots of Truma to the Cohen. The Cohen has to pay the value of one of them because he's only entitled to one. Now, what does the Cohen pay you for? To make a Dola, the money for the bigger one, or to make a tunnel for the smaller one? Mimada Tanina, that which we've learned, if they both fall into one place, now they create a mixture, a forbidden mixture, based on Kiktana Shabishte, like the smaller one of the two. Basically, that's what causes trouble if it falls in a mixture. Adara, this tells me to make a Dola nice like that. The Cohen has to pay the bigger one back. We say, look, we've got a suffix here, right? And it can only ask for a mixture based on the smallest amount of the possible truma which we have. That's definitely truma. And therefore the Cohen can't take it without paying back with a smaller amount. That's the share that's definitely truma, and that's he should get for nothing. But the bigger one, he can't take it for nothing. It's suffix truma. He can't start taking money away from the owner, right? If it's only a suffix. So therefore the Cohen keeps the smaller truma amount and he has to pay back for the big one. Okay. Now you cannot take truma from your fruit for your friend without telling him. You have, let's say, a partnership, right? You can't take truma for your friend, the partner, without telling him. Now what about if they're partners in the fruit and one partner took truma for his share and for the other partner's share without telling him? Now each one can be Torah their portion, but what about if Hafrosha helps also for the second partner? So if you've separated for the other partner, what happens? So so they both took Truma one after the other for the whole lot. Rabbi Kiva says, look, Truma of both of them is Truma. Now what does that mean? Half of what one separated becomes truma, and each one separated with truma his half, as it were. He's covered his half. So each one, when they both separated, this one separated, his half is covered, and when the second one separated, his half is covered. Okay, so basically but they separated for the lot. So half of what each one separated becomes truma. You understand? And each one sorted out his half. Right? Excuse me. Chachamim said, Trumas Harish Truma. The first one is valid. The whole thing is Truma. He's masakin all the fruit. Even for the other partner. And that which he separated, what the second one separated, is not Truma at all. So there you are. So we've got an argument. So Rabbi Kiva says, if each one took Truma for the lot, the first one is only taking truma for half, the second one does for the other half. And the Chachamim say, no, the first one's truma is valid for the whole lot, and the second one has done nothing.
Does the other partner need to be there?
What? No, it doesn't need to be there. Rabbi Yossi said, in Tarma Rishon Kashiu, I mean, usually Minamukaf, right? You should take truma being nearby. So here, one's done it because they're partners, he's done it for the other half. Now, Rabbi Yossi, he says, look, it depends how much the first one actually took as truma. In Tarma Rishon Kashiu, if he took truma, right, we'll see what that means. Is he arguing in the Chachamim or not? We'll see. If he did the right amount, ain't truma is a shady truma. And the second one is not truma at all. Because whatever the first one separated is hard to be masakin both halves. And when the second one comes around to it, his fruit don't need truma anymore. If he didn't take the right amount, then truma is a shady truma. Then the second one kicks in, and then his truma is valid. His half becomes truma because the first truma wasn't enough for the second half. So half of what that helped only for the first half, it didn't help for the second half. That's when the second one comes in. But when do we say that each truma of each partner helps for his share? According to Rabbi Kiva, right? Rabbi Kiva said each one helps for his share only, right? Where do we say this? B'shalai diber, where they never spoke beforehand. He never got permission to take truma for the other guy. He thought, he's probably going to agree. So Rabbi Kiva says, no. Who says he'll agree? Aval Hirshas ben Beisai. If someone allowed his family, his servants, his servant, his shivcha, to make truma is valid, even though they're not partners. They have no share in the fruit. And definitely if one should've gives permission to another one, right? So then it's definitely valid, even according to Rekiva. Now, because basically when you give permission to take truma, you're shliach, right? Shliach can be taking truma for all the fruit. Now, okay, yes, you can give permission to someone else to take truma. Now we're going to talk about, what about after you appoint a shliach, you go and cancel the agency. Bitel, if you cancel the shlichus, if he's not taken truma yet, bitel, you've gone and cancelled him. Truma, then he can't take truma. Bitel, if once he's taken truma, you cancelled it, too late. Truma is valid. Now, what about if a shutaf can take truma without you knowing about it? Now, we're now discussing what about a worker. Can a worker take truma when the balabais doesn't know? They can't take truma without getting permission. Now, these are the workers who are pressing the grapes. They are allowed to take truma without having clear permission. Why? Because shehen metamin es hagas. So the way a lot of people learn, the owner of this press is an amaret. He lets the front people make the wine, but as soon as he can get in, how the wine's doing, he'll get into the press. And what will he do? He'll be metame everything. So, and he's going to be rushing in to be metame everything. So we let these Haredi people be taking truma as soon as they possibly can, before the balabos ignoramus comes in here, right? So the shehein metaminas agas, the owner is not careful to be metame the wine. As soon as they start pressing, he'll come in, and once you're metame the wine, you can't separate tahar truma, right? Therefore, if the balabais is hiring them to press for him the grapes, he wants them to drink truma straight away, and he's appointing them shluchim, even though he never said it clearly. Basically, we can't trust him, right? And the Chachamim goes to it, Amaretz, and they know, you might not touch the grapes at the beginning. Okay, you're not so okay. We understand you hired the workers who are chaverim. You know you have to separate truma and so on. You have to be careful. The truma should be tar. Okay, you think, I'm sure they've done it by now, and he'll just rush in. You hear that? He'll just rush in, and then he'll start touching everything. And he thinks, they've already separated truma, right? So that's the sort of situation it is. Now, food does not become tummy unless it's moistened first with one of the 7 mashkin. There's chachamim or geyser, the grapes that are pressed. In the press, there are huchsha to tumah at the time of their plucking, even though there's no mashkin fallen on them at all. Okay. Some people, others, learn elsewhere that it's not that the owner is going to be rushing in, but it's a public area and other people rush in that touch things. All right. Now, Rabbi Kiva and Chachamim argue if a shutaf can take truma for the other partner, right? Now, what are we sort of talking about? If basically the shutfin are very knowledgeable, after Rabbi Kiva Moida, he'll agree that you can take truma for your friend. Each one agrees, the other one will take truma. And if he doesn't, they're not experts, they're not boking the halacha stuff. Rabbanan the Chacham will also agree you can't take truma for your friend because each one doesn't agree that the other one should take for him. Right? They don't know. We don't know when you're separating truma, is he boki or not. Rabbi Kiva that normally they don't know what the din is. Ein mamamchin. They don't sort of support, they're not so muzak, they're not experts. Therefore, each one doesn't want the other one to do it. Rabbanan Amrin Staman Mamamchin. He says, no, each one is supporting the other. Each sort of agrees the other one can do it for him. Al Da'ati Rabbi Kiva, according to Rabbi Kiva, that one can do it for the other one. And when that happens, no. If you're separating for each one, the truma is only chal on half, right? The Rabbi Kiva was the one who said truma shnei and truma. They both take truma. Basically, the partner can't take for the other one. So according to Rabbi Kiva, when each one separates truma, only half is chal, right? On his half, the truma is chal. And then the next guy comes and does it on his half. So Sar Shal Rishon, so the first Sar that was separated for truma, Chesya truma, well, half of it will be for his share, which is truma, but Chesya, and the other second half remains Tevel Tvula Lakol. Basically, nothing's been separated from it. not Maestros, not Truma, nothing. Sar Shel Sheni, the Sar of the second partner that he separated, Chetzia Truma, again, half of it is Truma he separated, and the other half, Chetzia Tevel Tavula LeMaestros. Basically, he separated Truma now. So the one guy's done his half, he's done his half, and then his second half of the second person still needs all the Maestros being taken. Now, I didn't really need to tell you this, it's Pashut. But he said, you know where you have a question about Chatzi Sar Shel Sheni, that second half of a Sar, so that half a Sar of the second one, which the Shutaf, the second partner, separated, and he has not corrected the half Sar, which is Tevel in the first half, in the first partner. So the half Sar of Truma, which the first one separated, he separated the half Sar remaining Tevel in the hands of the second, because basically whatever's not corrected through the second was corrected through the first. So all the fruit that were left for the first one, when he came along, he was masaking what he had. He wants to cover everything. Now the half Sar of Truma, which the second one separated, right? Now, what's going to be the din? What about the half Sar of Truma, which the second one separated now? Mao, he's covered his half, but there's another half. What's that doing? I mean, the first one's already done his half. You hear that? The first one has already covered his half. Now the second one comes and does a whole Sar again, and half of it is his half, but what's the other half do? Mao Shetiftar, does it patter from Truma, Chatzi Sar Shel Rishon, the half Sar of Tevel left behind from the first one? Do we say my second half can cover his half which he didn't do anything with? That Tevel over there, right? Can we say the second one has in mind to correct only what's in front of him, and the half Sar Tevel in the first one remains Tevel, because not the first one and not the second one separated Truma on this half? Or maybe the intention of the second person to be masaking the fruit wherever they are. So his half Sar is now in the hands of the first Shutaf, and maybe it's potter from Hafrosh's Truma. So basically my second half, I'm the second person, maybe my second half covers the second half of the first person, and maybe it's masaking everything in his second half. So in Nishmina in Hada, we learn from the following. We have a story. Aristotle, who was a person, Isaac Perin, he brought a bag full of fruit of Tevel, V'shai Saka. And when he took out the fruit, some of them were left in the bag, without him realizing. The Taram, and he took Truma on the fruit that were in front of him, outside the bag. After a while, he finds out there's fruit in the bag. Now the question is the Truma that he separated, has he corrected the fruit in the bag or not? Also, Rabbi Yosef's story came before Rabbi Yosef, he said, Chazaka ala kol taram. We said Chazaka, he covered all his fruit, even those left in the bag. When you separate Truma on fruit you know about, the Chazaka is you want to cover everything. Also the stuff which is not in front of you. You know, your intention is all the tevel that you know about. So the same thing here with the two partners, where they separate Truma one after the other. The second one knows that half of all of his fruit, the Chazaka is his intention is on the second one to take Truma for all his share, also what's remaining tevel in the hands of the Shutaf, which the first one separated. Rabbi Yossi said, if the first partner did separate proper share, the right amount, then the second one's Truma is not valid. But if he didn't take the share, then the second one's is valid. Now what share are we talking about? What does it mean if the first one took kashir? What share are we talking about? Is it share Torah, the Torah share, which is even the smallest amount is good enough from the Torah? 1 wheat is good enough. Or maybe a kasher chaverin, the share of the Chachamim, which is 1 in 50. So maybe he has to do 1 in 50. In Tabdine kasher Torah, if you say the Torah share, which is the smallest amount, less Rabbi Yossi Rabbanon. The Rabbi Yossi is not like the Chachamim, he's not explaining their words, he's saying a third opinion. Whereas in Tabdine kasher chaverin, if you explain his kavanah is like what the Chachamim set up, then Rabbi Yossi Rabbanon holds like the Chachamim, that he's explaining their words. And it's a very good question, but we have no answer. The Rambam passes like Rabbi Yossi, and he holds this is a Makar to be Machriya. The Rabbi Yossi is explaining the Chachamim, and therefore the halacha is like him. If anyone argued, it wouldn't be the halacha like him, except like the Chachamim. Okay. Now, what about someone who appoints a shliach to take truma, and then bitel, you cancel the shlichus. So we said, bitel, if before you take truma you cancel the shlichus, then the truma is not valid. But if it was too late, then it is valid. But less hador pliga ad Rish Lakish. Now, is this not arguing on Rish Lakish? Rish Lakish, he said, you cannot cancel your shlichus with words. If you appoint a shliach for you, the kinyan or whatever, and you change your mind, the bittul doesn't help. The shliach can just carry on because there's no dibur mevatel dibur here. And Mishnah is mashma, you can cancel the shlichus with speech. So the Gemara answers Tifta. We explain the Mishnah's about a case going Sha'ama, where the Balabai said to the shliach, Lech ukva b'tzafon, go and fix the truma in the north. V'halach v'kava b'darim. He went and separated truma in the south, let's say, the south of the pile. So the shliach changed what he was requested. So Rish Lakish agrees, if the Balabai has changed from the shlichus before he took truma, right, then the Chazara helps with dibur, and it can be mevatel the shlichus. So what's this? So if the shliach changed from what he was told to do, then Rish Lakish agrees that if the Balabais changes his mind from the shlichus before he's taken the truma, then Chazara helps. Okay. Right. What about the workers, Rabbi say? We said workers haven't got permission to take truma, ein lehem shus litrayim, except the ones who are walking in the press. Right? Rabbi Yochanan had roichos, those who are walking in the press. Once they've walked crisscross the length and the breadth of the press, then straight away you have to afterwards assume that the wine in the bow, where the wine which has been squeezed has gone to, is tomei out of doubt, because we're worried maybe the Balabai Samaretz touched the wine. Therefore they have to separate truma as soon as they finish the first stage of pressing while the wine is tahor. Because that's why they were hired, in order to separate the truma in a state of purity. But we've learned when they separate truma from the liquids in the gas, in the press, without permission, ain't truma. The truma is not valid. The Balabais doesn't want them to take truma. If it was small, and people might easily touch it, or there are other tamei people around, like moving the wine. I don't know, putting sticks in the wine and things like that. If there are other people causing that trouble, then truma. Then we want these people to separate truma. Basically, Balabais definitely wants them to separate truma before it all becomes tamei. Now we're going to explain how is this going against Rabbi Yochanan. It says, when do you have to worry? When there's people walking around with a stick. Right? That's why I can't guard this any longer. Go and take truma. If no one else is walking around with a stick, then I'm afraid it's too premature. There's no reason he will allow them to separate truma at this early stage. Right? And he says here, the Brisa says the Polim who took truma sounds like they've done the first action of squeezing. They just crisscross the gus, right, the press. And yet, if there's no one playing with sticks around, then I'm afraid there's truma. It's not truma, because the Balabais doesn't want them. He's not worried they'll make it tamei. He didn't hire them to separate truma. And this goes against Rabbi Yochanan, who said, look, as soon as they start the process, the Balabais is ready, quickly separate truma. And he's not careful, he'll come and defile the place. Therefore, they're allowed to take truma so early on, because that's why he hired them. So, which stage? Is it before people have sticks, once people have sticks, you can take truma? Or as soon as you crisscross the press, you separate truma? So, Maikudu. So, what we're going to answer the stira here? Kan be yain. One's about wine. Kan be shemen, or oil. Now, you're going to ask me, what's the difference between wine and oil? Below yain or shemen, it's the same thing. He says, no. Yain, tumas and mitzuya. Wine is easy to become tamei. People touch it, take a bit, taste it. There'll be amei aretz. You hear that? Even if no one's hitting it with sticks, each one, the Balabais hired the workers, they should separate truma straight away in order to separate truma tahira before the wine becomes tamei. Whereas shemen, shemen oil, you don't find people being with tamei so much. You can't drink as it is. There's no reason to think that Balabais wants them to separate Truma, so they're not allowed to unless there's other people with sticks over here measuring this, that, and the other, and then for sure he wants them to separate Truma before it becomes Tameh. Tani related to the Brisa. Maybe so Tameh is not Novim. When do you separate Truma from the wine that's squeezed out? The people who are pressing it are walking back and forward. When do you assume the wine coming out is all Suffolk Tameh? At which level of production that we can't guard it anymore in a state of purity? And therefore it's got Cheskas Suffolk Tameh? Because they won't guard it anymore, and there'll be people around, the Balabayas, the Amoretz. They say, once you take out Maser Sheni, until then you have to guard it. But once Maser Sheni's gone, that's it. Because if Maser Sheni's Tameh, it'll be also to be eaten. So once until Maser Sheni, then what? You need to guard the wine. Guard the wine in the state of Tahara.
After that point, you don't care like it's Tameh.
No, exactly. Beis Hillel say no. When you separated Maser Rishon of wine, until then you have to be careful to guard in the state of Tahara. But because Maser Rishon, you have to separate Trumas Maser like Truma. If it's Tameh, it's Asab Achila. Once you've separated Maser Rishon, you don't have to guard it in Tahara, because even though you've not yet separated Maser Sheni, it doesn't matter. It says here, you can eat, Amma Aretz will eat Maser Sheni in the state of Tumah. And therefore there's no ta'eles that people should guard it in the state of Tahara, that Maser Sheni should be Tahar. Because after, even later on they're not going to guard it, the Balabayas from Tumah. Now one who eats Maser Sheni Tameh is over the Isam and HaTorah. But the Amma Aretz don't worry about that. And also, Maser Sheni, which is Tameh, you can redeem it onto money and eat the fruit that's been bought as Chulin. Keser Pidyon, you can buy, therefore, Tahor food and eat it in Kedushas Maser in Yerushalmi. Okay, so there are ways out. So it doesn't matter so much about the Maser Sheni becoming Tameh. Okay? Right. So, Beisham is right. Once you've taken Maser Rishon, then it doesn't matter, you don't have to guard it. Oh, Rabbi, I see, Allah is like Beis Shammai, until you've taken Maser Sheni, then you have to guard it in a state of Tara. But Harabim Nagin Beis Hillel, they have a custom like Beis Hillel, only until you separate Maser Rishon, and after that they're not bothered. Oh, Rav Shimon, near and nearer Beis Shammai, B'Shas Mikdash. Beis Shammai makes sense the time of the base of Mikdash. Maser Sheni, Tar, you'll take it to Shalayim, guard it in state of purity. The different Beis Hillel is Manazeh. Beis Hillel is nowadays. They said like the Rezev, not like either of them. And a mighty Trumas Maser, the pile, the worker, should separate Truma Gedola or Trumas Maser straight away when you've got enough to separate, even without separating Maser Rishon. Just get the Truma and Trumas Maser out of the way. And after that, you don't have to guard the bar anymore. Instead of Tara, it's Suffolk Tameh, because the Balabais has taken his mind away from guarding it. Now, we've spoken about a frosh of Truma from wine which is squeezed from grapes. What about Truma from oil squeezed from olives? When do you separate Truma from the oil which is squeezed from the olives? Some say you separate Mishiyitchanu when they get ground. And some say Mishiyitanu. Right? Either Yitzchanu or Yitanu. They put a beam on the olives to squeeze the oil. So it's a bit before they grind them. It's an earlier stage. I understand the one where you put the beam across. I understand. That's like the Shir of Yechon said with grapes, when you walk crisscross in the press. But Lamanda Ama, according to what it says, Chanu, when you grind the olives, like in Amr of Yechon, didn't Yechon say, Hadraichas, the workers who are crossing the grapes, they walk crisscross in the press, but Tamid is a miyad. We must tamid everything straight away. Out of Suffolk. As soon as they reach that, we need to separate the truma, and after that it's not considered guarded, because Adam Tameh. It's mashma from Rabbi Yochanan that also the olives, you need to separate truma when there's this level compatible to walking Shesi Erev in the grapes. Basically, this is a time of putting the press down, the beam on. First time. I mean, if they're different from grapes, we should have said there's a difference between them. Right now, Rabbi Yochanan's words go against the Amora who said Mishitchanu, and you grind them. We're saying no, it's Mishitchanu. Elakam b'yayin, kam b'shemen. The difference is between wine and oil, but aren't they the same? Leo yayin or shemen. He says no. Ma ben yayin, ma ben shemen. What's the difference? He says, you know what? Yayin tumasa v'tsuya. It's very common that wine should be tameh. People touch it to taste it, so you have to be careful. Separate truma as soon as they've walked the press before it becomes tummy. Whereas shemen ain't tumasa v'tsuya. Oil is tumah is not so common. People aren't going to touch it. You can't drink it anyway, so you don't have to worry about taking truma until after the grinding. Based on this, since with oil tumah is not so common, so the Gemara holds you don't have to bring the hafrosh of truma, the level of putting a press on the olives, which is similar to crisscrossing the press for the grapes. Now, why do you have to anyway put truma before the gemar of the actual malacha of making the oil? You're still doing it at an early stage. So the answer is, you know what? Wine and oil, there's equal chance of problems. Right? Even with oil, strange people will come with a tameh and touching it. It's more common tumah with wine than with oil. Now you shouldn't take truma, oil, before you put the beam on the press, according to another Gersa, before you start grinding the olives. Now we bring a Tana who holds you have to separate truma from the oil at an earlier stage. Tani Rabbi Yehuda, he said, in Bradsa, if you want, maybe Zesim Nosen Tachasam Memel, you bring a stone, and you bring the olives, put it under there, and you put this stone crisscross on them, and you have to separate truma as soon as the oil starts coming out. And after that, you don't have to guard the rest of the oil in the state of purity. That will be Suffolk Tameh, and maybe you touched it in Tumah. So this is an earlier stage. They said, you can't compare olives to grapes. Anavim deis, they're softer, but noiskos, it's a yain, and they easily give out their wine. Whereas Zaysin kashin, olives are harder, and they don't give out that oil so much. So with the grapes, when you have an amount of wine, you get a certain amount through walking back and forward, but we're worried how many people will touch it. Where olives, there's less oil that comes out, and there's no chashav that people are going to come and touch it. So you don't have to bring the separation so early. You can wait to a later stage in the process. Okay? Fine. Halacha Gimel. Somebody says, you know what? I want the truma to be in this mound. Really, you should have a defined place for where the truma is. But you haven't said that. I want the truma to be in this mound. Where in this mound? The right? The left? The middle? Where? Trumas Ma says there, and the Trumas Ma says I need to separate on the Maserishan, in it, without fixing a place. What's the din? Shimon says it's effective. Chaim said no. You have to say Bitzvaina, the north side, or Bitroma, or the south side. Okay? Rabbi Lazar Chasma, he said, "I'm a truma sakri mimenu alav." This truma, truma sakri mimenu alav. I want the truma of this mound from it. It's like it's come of itself for itself. It's like truma from this mound for itself. Karashem, that's effective, according to that opinion. Okay. Okay. Rabbi Lezman Yaakov, he said, Ha'omer, one who says, Isu Maser, a tenth of my Maser, Zeh, also Trumas Maser Olav, will be the Trumas Maser. Karashem. Yeah, that's effective. Now, what about Bikurim? Hamagdim Truma li Bikurim. Now, if you separate Truma before Bikurim, or Maser Rishon before Truma, or Maser Sheni before Maser Rishon, it's not good. You are over a negative command, but Masha was done is done. And it is effective. Now, how do we know you can't change anything? Shanema says, Meleascha v'dimacha loitacha. Meleascha is your bikurim, dimacha is your truma, don't delay it. So you have to go in order. I mean, actually, you have my bikurim and truma. How do you know bikurim comes first? Because they're korei truma, voracious. Bikurim is called beginning and truma. But they're korei truma, voracious. Truma is also called that. Ella, yigdama bikurim. You know why bikurim should come first? Shehem bikurim lakol. They're the first of all the matanos. Well, Truma l'Rishon, why should Truma come before Master Rishon? Shehi Reishis, the Truma is called Reishis, whereas Master Rishon is not called that. But Master Rishon comes before Master Sheni. Why not? Why is that? Sheyesh by Reishis. Master Rishon has Trumas Maser in it, and that's called Reishis. Therefore, Master Rishon comes first. He says here, Trumas Maser itself hasn't got a Seder. You can separate it before Maser Sheni or afterwards. Okay? Right. Rabbi Yossi B'Rivud, Hashem Rabbi Yochanan. Now, what do we say? We said, calling Hashem Truma, even if it's within a Kri and you don't fix a place. That's according to Rav Shimon. But the Chachamim argue. They said, no, it's not Chal. You have to fix a place. Rabbi Yossi B'Rivud, Hashem Rabbi Yochanan. Asked Rav Shimon K'Bei Shammai. Rav Shimon is like Bei Shammai. K'mad Bei Shammai, they said, Kitshuv Medumayin. Now they said, Mishnah Daf Tes, Truma of two mixtures of Tevel, or olives, is like in a taruvas, in the mixtures, even if we don't know where it is. Right? The taruvas are damas, we don't have enough against it. Basically, calling a name Truma is Chal, even if you don't fix the place where it should be. And you don't know where the Shirayim are. So just like Beis Shammai said that there, Ken Rav Shimon Omer, he also says in that Mishnah, the Truma should be in it. Kitshuv Medumayin. It's Mekodesh in the mixture, and now it's Meduma. You got a mixture, you haven't fixed the place where it should be. So therefore you don't have noticeable things, so it's a mixture, it's part of a mixture. Now, this is based on the idea that according to Rav Shimon, even if you don't fix the place, and you don't have Shirayim, Nikorim, the Truma is Chal. Now, Ad Kadun, that's all very well, the Truma is Chal, but I know when you say the Truma should be in it, B'toichai. So yeah, okay, you want it to be in the middle of the Kri, not the sides. But Amar Boy, you said the Truma should be in it, but you didn't say B'toichai. It means in a fixed place. But you didn't say where that place is. Ma'adin, what's the din? Are you going to tell me the Truma is Chal? Nishmina min Hada. We learn from the following. Maser Sheni, if a person says, you got fruit of Tevel, where Maser Sheni hasn't been taken. And you say, Maser Sheni in this should be Mechula Lamoisala, should be profaned onto that money, and now you're giving it Shem Maser Sheni on that fruit, which is in the Chayvetz, you're Mechala, the Kedushas Maser Sheni onto the money, but Loi Kava Loi Mokon. You never said where the fruits of Tevel in the item will be, where the Maser Sheni will be. Rav Shimon Omer Korolei Shem, he says it's effective, it's Maser Sheni on the fruit, and therefore there's pidyon onto the money. But there's nothing. You have to say it's got to be in the south or the north. Amra, this tells me, there's no difference if you say in it, or by, right? And basically you mentioned Maser Sheni in this item, where it is. No, not Shabbasoich this item. It's much more right in the middle. No, we're not saying that. But the Maser Sheni is Chal on the fruit, and Rav Shimon holds even if you don't fix a place, the Truma and Maisris are Chal. Because Rav Shimon holds like Beis Shammai, Kriyas Shem is Chal even without fixing a place. Now the Direi Chachamim, according to the Chachamim, where do they learn you have to have a fixed place for Truma? Rav Zira Shem Ravud Madacheva Shem Shemei Lagish, it says, V'nechshav lachem l'terumaschem, and he says it will be thought to you as your truma v'harim moisem, you'll separate it. Now v'nechshav is a lashon machshava. So truma gedola, trumas maser can work through machshava. You think in your mind, this would be truma gedola, this would be trumas maser, without speaking, without action. Harim moisem, separating with your hands, lifting up. Right? So we're comparing machshava to lifting up with your hands. Ma Torah b'mesuyam, just like when you're separating truma with your hands, you've got something finite in front of you. You know what we're dealing with. And machshava b'mesuyam. So when you put a truma with your thought, you have to do it mesuyam, with something specific. You're fixing in your mind the area of the north or the south. You hear? Which area, which truma we're talking about. Now, if a person, imagine you have 2 mounds of teba, and you say truma sakriya zeh, truma of this mound, the zeh, and the truma of the second mound, the zeh, will be in the first mound. You hear that? Truma of the first mound and the second mound will be in the first mound. So truma sakriya zeh, the zeh, the zeh. So, but you didn't say where. Where in the first mound? Rabbi Yochanan, Malkum Shenistaima, where the place finishes, Trumasa Shel Rishon, the Truma of the first one, Sham next to it, Nistaima finishes, is fixed, Trumasa Shel Sheni, the Truma of the second one. You didn't say where it will be, but wherever it will be, the second one will be next to where the first one finished. Right? Your kavanah is next to where the first Truma finished, that's where the second Truma should be. Rabbi Yitzchok bar Elazar, boy, Yasa Shel Truma. Imagine a soft truma shenafla l'tech hakri, which falls into a tevel mixture. We don't know where it fell. We don't know how much. There's not enough to cancel it out. He says truma sakri azeh b'teicha. The truma of this mound will be in it. Malkum shenafla isisar, where that soft truma fell. Sham nisaima. That's where the truma shakri. That's where the truma of that kri is. That was your kavanah. You want to put truma next to the truma that fell there. Now, even though you just said stam, the truma sakri is in it, is if you fix the place. Because you want it to be next to the truma that's fallen there already. Right? The truma is chal even according to the chacham. Even though we don't know where it fell, but Hashem knows where it fell. So when you give a name of truma, it's considered you're fixing it in a place next to the truma that's there already. Okay? Right. Amar. If he says, truma sakri bitzvainai, truma should be in the north, then the din is Chetziyai Ulatzafon. The northern half, from halfway till the top northern corner, Meduma, that's where the mixture where it could possibly be. Divrei Rebbe. So the whole northern half is called the north. And the Trumas Chal in there somewhere, mixed with Chulim. But Nasa Palga, and the owner himself takes the south half, because that for sure there's no Truma in it. You make a shape like a key. A key is like a peg, right? One line and a letter L, right? One line, another line at a right angle. And therefore, you're going to sort of divide out for yourself a certain area. Some say it's like a little, 4 quarters and it's the top quarter. Some say it's like a letter X, right? Kaf Yuvonis, maybe it's a little letter X. Chad min arba, if you want a quarter of it to be meduma, and the rest will be chulin. So then a quarter of it, basically. The Gemara says, if you said it will be in the quarter, then it's the north. So basically it's from the northern quarter of the the northern quarter of the northern half. Okay? It says here, we divide the north side into half, and the north half of that is where the Truma's Chal, and that Chelek has a mixture in it. Okay. And the Gemara explains, it means an eighth. It's an eighth of the Kri becomes a mixture. Okay. We will stop here, Rabbi Sai. To be